I think when you grow up on a farm, you realize that every day is a special day, and every day you got to work hard. Here I was on a farm many years ago, and now I'm in this position today.
I think you're, 500 to 600 million in that range? Is that right?
Yes.
I just think that speaks volumes to what you built.
Broadcasting from the Queen City, you're listening to What Gives? Here's your host, the president and CEO of the Northern Cincinnati Foundation, Aaron Satzker.
So today I have the pleasure of sitting here with Ron Rosenbeck and Jeremy Rosenbeck. I remember meeting you gentlemen, 5-10 years ago. It feels like yesterday, but it wasn't. And your other facility, your other building, when I worked for John Boehner. And so that was like the first time, Ron, that I met you. And soon after I met Jeremy, your son. I want our audience and listeners to hear from both of you all on, your role at Republic Wire and just kind of like the day-to-day, what you guys do.
Well, first of all, I appointed Jeremy president in 2016.
I saw that.
Yeah, right around there. Yeah.
So I put him out there he said, we got problems in the shipping department. And he said, you really need to change some things around because it's not working properly. And I said, fix it.
That's amazing.
So I told him, go out there and make the changes you want to make. So after he was in shipping, I moved him to extrusion.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing in extrusion. He says, I think we got some things out there that we can change and we can fix to make us more efficient. I looked at him, I said, fix it. So it was one of those things. And then, he was in Bear Copper Division too. Those are our three main divisions. And every one he came up with something. And so the funny thing was we were out in, I think it was Las Vegas or San Diego in 2016. And we had all of our sales team there from all over the U.S.
Dallas.
Was that Dallas?
Dallas.
So at that point, he was VP of sales. Mm-hmm. And so we had this 1 hour session and he went through his sales presentation. And then at the end, I usually do the last 15, 20 minutes. I go through a copper analysis and maybe some future investments we're going to get into and whatever. And I said, I have one thing today I'm very proud to say is that today I'm naming Jeremy president of the company. He didn't even know.
Jaw dropped.
And I thought he was ready a year or two before that, but I just felt I wanted to hold off a little bit more.
Right. How growing up then, Jeremy, with Ron, obviously your dad, and then stepping into the business, how was that transition? It sounds like it was a great way to learn the business.
Well, he painted a nice rosy picture, and of course, he's going to. But no, and he hit it right on the head, and that's kind of how our relationship has always been. He challenges me, sees if I rise to the top, and if I do, great. If not, he finds a way to help it, go a little bit higher, or he'll put his hand in and adjust this or adjust that, and then I take it and run with it. And it's nice for me to know that he has that faith in me, that he can just be in any role and he doesn't have concerns that it's not going to be corrected or it's not going to work properly. He's put a lot of faith in me over the years. We joke all the time about, he's asked me numerous times if something were to happen or if I decided to sell out, what would you do? And I said, I don't know if I could work for anybody else because I've had so much leeway for so many years.
Yeah.
Right? So when you have that opportunity, especially from a young age all the way through your career,
right,
you get ingrained in that. You get used to it. So at the time when he promoted me to president, it was funny. He did do that, by the way. And my jaw dropped. I look over at my regional sales guys and their jaw is dropped and we're all looking at each other. I'm doing this. They're doing this.
Right.
I'm looking back at agents. They're doing this. Totally dumbfounded everybody. And, and I just looked at him and said, obviously, thank you. and, held back until we walked out. And one of my favorite stories about that time was we walked out, and I looked at him and I said, why? Why would you do this now? And he goes, what are you talking about? Why? And I said, I'm VP of sales. We're absolutely killing it. We're growing by this percentage every year. I've got the sales group running. Everything is running smooth. Everything is going great. Why would you throw a wrench in the mix? He goes, because you're ready for the next step. And it was literally as nonchalant as that. It was as nonchalant as that. And, and of course, me being who I am, why do you think it's the time? So I'm asking a million questions, and he's just looking at me like, look, do you want this or not?
I may not make an impulsive decision, but I will make a decision. It's just a matter of I take my time, I think it through, I look at all the alternatives, then I make my decision.
Right.
And that was the one thing. Not only did he earn respect from our employees, because they knew I just didn't give him a VP title right out of college. He earned it to get where he got to. So all the employees fell right in line, all the managers, it was a smooth transition. And, so back to your original question, what do I do now? Well, I trade copper.
Yes.
And we're using about 8 million pounds of copper a month.
Yeah, right. Well, a little bit higher than that, but yeah.
Yeah, 8 to 9 million pounds of copper a month. It depends on, like last year, we shipped almost 110 million pounds.
Where are you shipping?
All over the U.S. and Canada.
Okay.
And sometimes the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Because we sell to exporters in like Miami or wherever. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we don't even know where the wire goes.
Right.
Funny story. I knew we've put wire in Cape Canaveral in their grounding system for the shuttles. Mm-hmm. We have done Disney World down there. In fact, our suppliers right on the campus of Disney World, all the suppliers have to be right there. So if a ride breaks down, they got the wire and everything to go fix it. So like the robots that,
So cool.
So we're out at the Super Bowl, the last one. For the Bengals.
For the Bengals. You guys were there.
And
good time, probably.
Which was really cool. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but it's really cool because there was multiple generations of our family there.
Oh,
yeah. My son was there for his first ever Super Bowl. It was my first ever Super Bowl. My younger brother's first ever Super Bowl and his second Super Bowl.
Yeah. We're driving to the stadium.
Okay. I'm with you.
And I look off in the distance and I go, there's SoFi Stadium over there.
Yeah.
And Jeremy says to me, do you realize a third of the wire that's in that stadium is ours? Like we've done the Freedom Tower in New York.
Yeah.
We got some wire in that.
We actually,
on
the day of September 11th, we actually sent 2 truckloads of wire up there to help power the search engine lights.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Sent two truckloads free of charge, just sent them up to help power the search engine light.
I'm proud to say I have 4 children working here. I have twin daughters. One is human resources director. I have one who's in charge of our safety and all of our, like dealing with OSHA, workers' comp, whatever. And then my younger son is now in sales.
Okay.
And he's 26.
Okay.
So
let's talk about inception of the company and incepting the idea. And then I kind of want to dive into, from Jeremy's perspective, how you guys have scaled so magnificently to taking up the space that you are.
Yep.
We're in the distribution center right now, right? Like that's a big deal. So talk about how you incepted it.
Okay.
Were you at the back porch saloon? Where were you?
No, actually, when I graduated Miami, I went to work for Arthur Andersen. At that time was
Did you really?
the largest CPA firm in the world.
So many excellent, amazing people, by the way, have come from Arthur Andersen. So
But before I even finished getting my CPA, I worked there about 4.5 years, and I was putting in about 80 hours a week.
of course you were.
Said, this is not for me. And I found this company that needed a controller, and they were in the electrical business. And so I took the position, and I got to go to a lot of the conventions and meet a lot of salespeople around the country. And it was one of those things that just, I'm a very social person. So, I mean, if you put 10 people in this room, I don't know any of them, I'll go meet every one of them before they leave. So I got to meet a lot of good people in the industry, but I didn't have hardly any money.
Mm-hmm.
So, I took out a loan. Once I bought my partners out, I took out a loan at the bank. I think we were doing $5 million when I bought out my partner.
Which probably was a big deal. Like at the time you were like, oh my gosh.
Not really.
You didn't think so?
So I went to my bank, and I won't say which one it was because it wouldn't be good, but
Yeah.
I went to them. They said, no, you shouldn't be in the copper business. It's too volatile.
Yeah.
And at that time, it wasn't really volatile at all compared to today. So I think copper at that time was trading for 70 to 80 cents a pound. And so what I did, I worked out a deal where I had my wire fabricated and tolled in Chile through a company at that time called Phelps Dodge, which is now Freeport McMoran. So they were shipping up container loads to me, and then we were just bringing it down from bulk into small packages and selling to distributors around the country. Well, I think I had 26 agents at that time, and the biggest agent was doing maybe at the most $1 million. So it took me from 85 to 94 to build up enough money to buy my first machine.
Wow.
And if I showed you a picture of my first machine, you'd just say, did you get this out of the scrapyard?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like.
But it was probably a good milestone, right? Like that had to feel good that you accomplished that.
No, it's a really good machine.
It's actually one of our best machines. Right?
Really?
So the funny story is that I sent it from Phoenix to Boston with 5 truckloads, had it all, rebuilt, painted, had it all computerized because it was all manual before that, brought it in, hired this guy from a company who was supposed to really be good at making insulated wire.
Yeah.
Well, he quit after a year. And, I was at the point where I almost said, enough of this. I'm not really interested in doing this anymore. Right. There's one word in my vocabulary, and I tell young people this.
Okay.
If there's one word in your vocabulary that you should never speak, it's failure. You never want to believe that you're going to fail. You always want to believe you can succeed.
Yes.
And I think my parents and grandparents gave me the work ethic and motivation to, really see this through. And that was the great part about it, was taking something that was just nothing and to where we're at today. And that's the fun of when you're a growing company, you're always doing something new and different, like the robots I was talking about in the factory.
I know. I do want to talk about that, but first, before we talk about the robots, I do want to ask Jeremy. So when you stepped into the company, then, and it's the 90s, you're fresh out of college. Yep. Did you ever imagine where you are right now? Your dad said 49, right? You're not even 50.
Yeah.
So did you imagine or envision that you would be this scale at that time, or could you?
One of the things that people who know both of us very well, I think they would always say about us is that and I always make the joke that nobody ever told us we were short on ambition, right? So I think in the long run, we both believed that we could take this to whatever heights we decided we wanted to, and however hard we wanted to work to get it there.
Right.
So, dollar wise, I don't know necessarily, just because of the sheer fact that when I joined the industry, like Ron was saying, we were at 85 cents a pound, right? So would we have ever expected copper to go to $4 a pound or $3 a pound or whatever? Probably not that, right? So the revenue dollar format may have been different in our vision.
Right.
But the poundage and what we're doing from a, controllable factor, we can't control the revenue, right? Copper goes up, goes down, it affects our revenue. We can't control that factor. We can control how much pounds we shipped out. We can control how much we produce. We control all that. So that aspect, absolutely. That was always where we're at now, was always a goal. And even beyond has always been a goal. You know, every time that he and I reach, or his company reaches that next milestone, it's us getting together and going, okay, what's the next one?
Right.
You know, we are never satisfied with staying put.
Well, as I like that you keep saying, okay, what are we doing next? What are we, like, goal setting? And actually there's a fancy term for this now, Ron, but you were talking to me about brain mapping, right? You're saying, I never fail. Instead of saying, saying this is failure, you're saying, you're going to win, you're going to do well, you're going to grow this. And actually there is neuroscience behind this for CEOs, to just stay positive. Right. You can weather the storm, in down years.
I mean, so it's short of mistakes. I mean, I know I've made some big mistakes over the years. I know I can think of 2 or 3 off the top of my head that probably cost the company a couple $1 million. So, but those are not failures. They're mistakes, learning opportunities, and move on. Right.
Right. Those key learnings for both of you. If you're talking to a young entrepreneur right now, or just advice for people in business and starting their own business, what do you think that one takeaway would be? I want to hear your takes, because I do think they might be a little bit different.
I think they will be.
Well,
I think there will be a slight difference. I'm curious.
What I tell young people is, and I've had some young people, I just had 2 from the University of Michigan email me saying they want to just talk to me for a half an hour over the phone as to how I got in business and what motivated me. But what I tell young people is, find something you enjoy and you're interested in. Then when you go there, when you interview and you get in at a company that is the industry you want to get into, talk to older people that have been in the business for a while. Find out what they have taken away from the industry, what motivated them to do what they did, and find out about the industry from them. And then also go to conventions, find out at conventions, talk to people, what they've done. They can maybe give you some ideas to go in a different direction, or to stay where you're at and maybe do some things that they've done. But don't think you're going to do this in 1 to 2 years.
Right.
I said, it took me 10, 12 years to get my first machine. Now, I was lucky because back in the 80s, you could fabricate and bring it in from overseas and insulate it and still make money. Today, you can't do that.
Right.
Today, if you not have all the machinery and do the whole process from A to Z, you're not going to succeed. That's in the manufacturing end. Now, maybe there are some industries you can do that. Not in our industry. You have to invest the capital. I'm not taking anything away from young people, but I think the younger generation needs to get more involved and more motivated in what they want to do, and really concentrate on that industry.
Right.
That's what I would tell them.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. What about you? What's your...
So actually, we're a little more aligned than I thought we.
Okay.
I knew he would be more of a big picture guy, right? Yeah. Because that's who he has always been, is, keeping the big picture contained. Mine's kind of more on a granular level, more from a, say, production side or production mentality. That idea that when you get into something and when you start something, you have to be willing to do everything. And you have to willingly do it with a smile on your face. And what I mean by that, I know when he first put me in shipping, okay, there were numerous times where we had an order where we needed to get it out that day or next day or whatever, and we had a bunch of stuff to do for it. And you'd go to people and you'd say, hey, can you work overtime? No, I can't do it. Okay. Hey, can you work overtime? No, you can't do it. Okay. Then it comes down to me, because ultimately it falls on my shoulders. So I had to be the one to step in, stay until midnight, work that program until we got it done, even if it was 16, 17 hours that day or whatever it may be. And as an entrepreneur in particular, and I wasn't in, and I'm speaking from a different level, right? Because I came in when he was already established. He was on the growing path, and I had some different challenges because of that. but I wasn't in on the initial level, so I can't even speak fully to what the startup looked like. But I can say that if you're not willing to get your hands dirty, you're not willing to step in when things have to happen, you're not willing to stay until 9, 10 o'clock at night, which I don't see a lot out of the growing generation, right?
Right.
I don't see a lot of that desire to say, you know what, it is what it is. I'm going to roll my sleeves up and get my hands dirty. Right. It is what it is. I see too many entrepreneurs with that whole idea of that quick rich or get rich quick mentality. You know, we joke about it, but that is honestly the goal. They want to see a 5-year growth and then they want to sell off and make millions, and they think they're going to ride off into the sunset.
For sure.
And too many owners that are just willing to just put money towards it and just see what happens and let all their workers do the work. When we were smaller, it was, you do what you have to do.
Right.
And I remember numerous times being at the factory until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, running a machine I'd only run once or twice in my life and doing what I had to do to help those guys get the job done. It's not just money and you're not always sitting behind a desk making decisions. Sometimes you are out on the floor doing what you have to do. You're talking to customers. You're doing whatever you have to do.
Right. It's good that you coming in as second gen, and I think you care about it, obviously.
And I think a big part of it, you asked earlier about scaling up.
Mm-hmm.
You started to head that direction. But one of the things I wanted to mention about that was, while I had challenges with that from a sales aspect and from an operations aspect, and I had my mentor there to help me through that path, it was really an easy sale. I hate to say it that way, but I look back on it, it was really an easy sale, right? Because we went to market different than anybody else. Everybody else was, you're a number, you're part of this sale in the corporation. Hey, just take what we tell you and move on, right?
Sure.
We went to market with a homegrown story. He had a brochure that we would pass out to customers that the best kept secret in the industry, right? And in that brochure, it detailed out his story. Grew up as a farmer, paid his own way through college, got through the accounting world. So we sold it that way.
Right.
And we sold ourselves rather than our company. So what I mean by that is we went to market exactly how he wanted us to. Be loyal to your customers, build the customer base on loyalty and honesty, back it up with service and good quality product, and it'll all come out in the wash, right? And we did that. And each year we incrementally went up and incrementally went up. And my main challenges with that growth were the fact that we were very lean, right? At one point, I was doing shipping operations manager and national sales, and I was traveling all over the country and coming back and spending time. And, the guys on the factory floor would be like, oh, man, it's so nice. You were just in New York City. You're probably over at the Statue of Liberty, and then you probably went to the Emirates. So I don't even know where those places are.
Value-wise, I think you're, 500 to 600 million in that range? Is that right?
Yes.
I mean, way to knock it out of the park. As I'm sitting here, I'm looking at like the Reds jersey here in Ron's office. We see the Anthony Munoz here jersey over here. So yes, way to knock it out of the park. It's a valid comment, but I just think that speaks volumes to what you built. We're sitting here and I was hearing before we started recording about robots.
Yeah.
And robots not at this location, but a different location. And now I'm really sad because I want to see these robots. But can you tell me about, one, how is manufacturing changing? Are you going to do more? Are there going to be more robots? Where are we with it?
Before we get into that, I'll let him explain it. You talk about business and people that have succeeded. And I know there's, sometimes a lot of jealousy because of, and one of the things I'm proud to say is that I've got a lot of employees here that have been with me 25, 35 years.
It's incredible.
And I've seen their families. And now I was surprised the other day, one of the employees said he's got grandchildren. And over the years, I think about, when I talked about failure, 2001, we had a lot of customers go bankrupt on this.
Really?
And that was devastating, more than 2008. But 2001, what was the first thing I did? I said, okay, I looked at my overhead. I said, I've got to, look at processing cost. My processing costs were too high. So I went out and I bought 2 automated machines that replaced like 18 people. And I took the 18 people and put them on the skilled ones on other machines because they were important to me. Mm-hmm. And the same way in 2008, what we did, we've always, our skilled people are so important to us, because we can run on one machine alone. We can run 16,000 feet of wire in a minute.
Right.
And I mean, these machines are processing a lot of copper. And so when 2008 came, the advantage was I looked at it and I said, okay, copper went from $3.28 to about $1.25. So I said, okay, it's gone down a lot. So now it's got to go up again a lot. If copper goes down quite a bit, I know if the fundamentals are there, you can make money on the way back up. And that's what you have to do is you have to get to know your industry and then take advantage of it.
Yes, definitely.
And so I'm proud to say one thing, there are competitors, and I know one competitor is considered one of the best in the industry. They're number two right now.
Are you nationally, can I ask where are you stacked? What is OpenAI or Grok tell you? Where's your standing, right? 4? That's incredible. Oh my gosh. I know you want to keep getting better. I get it. But I'm like, wow, that's really, we want to. I like it. Set the goal.
One goal we always relate to is copper dollars, or the important part is copper pounds. Mm-hmm. Are we growing in copper pounds?
Okay.
So we do $3 million per employee revenue. One of the top competitors does $2.2 million per employee. And they are just as automated as we are. But like Jeremy said, we analyze people like they may have 4 guys in a region in sales and we've got 1.
Right.
You don't need 4.
Right.
But somehow it's like our federal government. Things got out of control and they have so much overhead.
Right.
And then when things go bad, they have to lay people off.
Right.
We look at it a little bit different. We don't want to lay anybody off.
Right.
I've only done it once, and that was after
2001 or 2008, yeah.
And it was devastating to me that I had to let some people off.
I'm sure.
So we eventually ended up hiring back, I think 50 or 60% of them.
Oh, it was more than that, 100%.
Well, to kind of preface that, we only laid off about 4 or 5 people. So it wasn't even that bad. We were able to stem it at that. So one of the things that Ron taught me very well, and something that I followed through with him when we hit COVID, right? When something occurs like this, a major detrimental situation, and you're looking out long term, you look out about 1.5 years, or you gauge how long you think that's going to go, and then you create a plan for that period of time. That's what we did in 2008. And we had to lay off the initial 5. 3 of them came back within a month, and all 5 were offered their positions back, to your point, but not all 5 came back.
Yeah.
So I think we ended up getting 3 out of the 5 back, so about 60%. But anyway, long story short, we did the same thing with COVID. When COVID hit, we created a 5-point plan. I pulled my managers in and said, okay, I hate to do this to you guys, but I need you to classify your guys in 5 different tiers. The 5th tier being absolute skeleton, right? We're down to the absolute bare bones, the guys that we cannot do without. And then each step up, it was incremental. The first step being we had a operations manager at the time that was close to retirement. So we asked him to take early retirement.
Right. And
offered him health insurance for the remainder of the year as an exchange. So that was a huge benefit to us because we lost that salary right away. And then we laid off our temps. And then by June, we were hiring again. I remember going in on March 1st, sitting with my guys out in the factory. And of course, we bring everybody together. First thing I do is put their arms apart. And I said, okay, don't touch your fingertips. Get as close as you can. And I looked at all of them and said, look, guys, you still have a job. But if you get any closer than this, we won't have a job.
Right.
So I've never seen guys sprint to their machines so fast because everybody, I mean, think of the unknown that was going on at that time.
Right.
Everybody was worried they were going to lose their jobs. People were getting laid off left and right. Everybody was going home. If you could work remote, you could. But, even then you weren't allowed to work a lot.
No.
So
No, it was a dark time.
it really was. And, that was probably, but, the fact that we created a 5-point plan, then only enacted one and actually reverted back to hiring by June 15th of that year, because we had the entire office back by June 15th of that year.
Well, the other thing we did too, I always like to, every once in a while, I'll tell him, go get a bunch of $100 gift cards, like when gas went up. And I say, get the gift cards, hand them out to all employees. Let's go out and, to help them through things. So when COVID came up, we got a PPI loan.
Yep.
And what we did was gave everybody bonuses.
Yep.
Right.
And to help them through the period of time because a lot of them had to take off because their parents got sick or their wife got sick or whatever. So we wanted to help them through it. And
yeah.
Those are things I think as a business owner are very, very, to me, something that's very important. I want to help
appreciate your employees, and I think that shows tenfold. And I'm glad that you guys do, and I'm glad that you're here locally. I mean, for us at this podcast, we call it What Gives. We get to sit down with CEOs, presidents, founders, and it's really fun to just talk to people in our region, like the whole Southwestern Ohio region, and say, how did you do it? Look at where you started, look at where you are now. And really, I like hearing your story. It's I haven't heard it to this degree before. I've walked your other facility when I worked for Boehner, but it's really special, I think, that you've stayed here. We were born here as a community foundation, Westchester Liberty. I think you were on our original board, by the way. Is that true? My gosh. So
Patty, for probably 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, isn't that? And so now we've grown, we've professionalized. We're the Northern Cincinnati Foundation, where we're Hamilton County, Butler County, and Warren County. Right. And we get to work with CEOs in all of those areas. And now we've evolved to where we're like meeting with YPOs and people in EO, and really we're growing because we're professionalizing too, and scaling too. So I'd love to hear the stories on this.
I don't know if you're aware, but I was the third building out here.
No. Really?
It was nothing but cornfields.
Yes.
And
I grew up out here.
I got pictures of Union Center being built. Everybody was like, what are you doing going out there? And
I remember when there was like a Walmart and a McDonald's off Harrisville, and I was like, this is amazing. And really, we're built out.
Yeah.
We are built out. We're almost 100% built out in this area. Liberty is still pretty go-go, but they're going to be built out before we know it. And then I kind of almost look at Mason and Deerfield as a part of our community too, in that northern Cincinnati region, similar suburban communities.
That was one thing when we built this building.
Mm-hmm.
And Monroe came up, and everybody said, you should move to Monroe. They got cheap land, and they're really growing out there. And, so I started thinking, well, Westchester's treated me well over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I respect, and I'm loyal. When I go with a bank or supplier, unless they just really mess up.
If they mess it up, don't mess it up. That's what he's saying. I haven't messed it up,
Then I'm loyal, and because I want to build relationships,
right?
And these are the type of things you look at when you want to expand. And I just really, I've lived here since 97, and we've actually have grown to the point where it's I feel like I'm well respected in the community, which makes you really feel good.
You are.
And
you are. Really, you're part of the group that founded, our foundation. And so look here, we're 25 years old.
Yeah, we were one of the initial contributors to the foundation.
I know. You helped found us. That's so cool. And now look what we're doing. Like we are professional. We are sophisticated. We're talking long-term assets, S-Corp stock. It's so much fun.
Right.
But you helped incept it. just like you helped incept this. What do you think it is? Because you've always been giving back to kind of your local community. Baseball is one example that comes to mind that you're philanthropic with. Kids, youth, sports. Why do you think you've been inspired to give back? Because I've known that you always to be that way.
I think it's one thing as a business owner that I'm not going to say, but it's one thing if you respect your community, you should do.
Mm-hmm.
That's just part of being a business owner, and respecting, not only, other businesses or whatever, but children. To me, children, I donate to St. Jude's. I donate to a lot of different
You do.
charities
Yeah.
because I really, when you look at children today, it really aggravates me or hurts me when I see children that are not being brought up properly and the parents just leave them and now they're orphans. I mean, that is just, I had a great, when I grew up,
You had a great childhood.
I had a great childhood.
Yes.
And I respect, people that donate to their community and really want to give.
You probably were taught that, to give back to your community just from your parents, whether it was like local church, local school, something inspired you to be involved.
Well, that was what was great about when I grew up. It was a farming community, but everybody was close. Everybody was giving. If somebody got sick in our family, people were bringing pies over and soup and all kinds of things. And you just were part of the community was very giving. But I think, even today with the employees I have, I appreciate every one of them. They could have gone to Amazon and worked or any place else, but they've chosen Republic Wire.
Yeah.
And that's what I cherish. Without my employees, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Right. Jeremy, to you, what is the trend now? I'm hearing that you have robots, obviously, at your other facility. How do you see that changing in the next 5 or 10 years? How are you staying at the forefront? Because I feel like our whole world as we know it, and you guys probably know it better than I do even, it's rapidly changing with.
Well, I think, a big part of that was just automation in general.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you heard Ron speak earlier about some of the machines and the speeds we run at. Physically, a human just can't keep up with those speeds. So in order to maintain these machines at the technology and the speeds that they run, you have to have a machine on the other end. You need somebody that's not going to call in sick, that's not going to have the downtime. It's going to be able to keep pace without tiring down. So, and from our standpoint, one of the things that we recognize very early on, we are one of the few in this area that do what we do. Mm-hmm. So whenever we were bringing somebody in, we were always training them from day one. We knew that it's very rare for us to get somebody who has experience doing what we do. So from that standpoint, we also knew that we needed to put a lot more money, time, training into our skilled operators that were running the lines.
Right.
And eliminate a entry-level position that was hampering those skilled operators that were doing their job, right? So as we looked more and more into it, like Ron said, early on in the 2000s, he bought a couple of automated machines. They were very exact. You have this put up, this spool length, this size. That was all you could do with that line. To your question about how has it developed, it has expanded, okay? So as we have picked and chosen our different automated machines, we've chosen based on, what gives us some flexibility, but also gives us the speeds that we need, the level that we need, the complete product that we need. So we teamed up with a group called MGS up in upper state New York. They were working very heavily with robotic arms, which was new to the industry at the time. I think it's been much more developed across the other automated manufacturers now, but they were one of the first ones to really heavily invest in robotic arms. And we brought one of their machines in back in 16, 17, roughly. That was our first one with them. And what we calculated as a 3-year return on investment turned into less than a year and a half.
Oh my gosh.
So at that point, it's a no-brainer,
Yeah. Why would
right? So you go, okay,
Why would you?
can we do it with this machine? Yep, we can. All right, let's put it there. Can we do it with this machine? No, we need something a little bit different. Then we went back to MGS and said, okay, what are you doing that's different?
Right.
What are you doing that can make this a little bit better? And they said, well, this is where we're going. We said, okay. So we went from initially a robotic arm that just loaded empty spools and picked up finished spools and put them on a skid, to now a machine that has 2 robotic arms that not only makes the box, it seals the box, it stuffs the box, it runs the reel,
Right.
and ultimately puts the reel on its skid. Yeah. So, we are taking multiple positions and eliminating them and putting in one machine to replace it. So that allows us to save that money on that side. Our return on investment is quickly back. Save the money on the entry-level positions, retake that money, reinvest it in our skilled operators, and we increase their wages incrementally.
Right.
So that we have good starting wages for those skilled operators, and those guys can continue to grow.
And good benefits.
Absolutely. And the
Yeah.
benefit package is something we pride ourselves on. We consider it a morality situation, not a business situation.
Right.
And some people look at that and they go, what are you talking about? And we say, basically, look, these people are coming in, and while we are a very safe company, we have very few possible concerns, they're still putting their life on the line every day,
Right.
right? They're coming in, they're putting their life on hold to come and work at your position.
Mhm.
It's only right that you'd give those people some health benefits and some health,
Absolutely.
coverage, and you give them an opportunity to make a little more money here, a little more money there. So, I mean, we're very robust, to Ron's point, in our benefit package, whether it's bonuses and that kind of structure, or it's just the standard benefits of health insurance, 401k, so on and so forth. From our side, we look at it as more a morality thing that, hey, this is just what you deserve based on coming here and working.
Absolutely.
So, but that robotics, so we basically have teamed up with that group, and while we're not exclusive with that group, we do a lot of machinery with them. I think we bought 4 of their machines now in the last 10 years. Well, one coming in right now, and we're working with them on the next one. So that was going to be my next point, was that we've gotten to a point with them where we're feeding them information saying, okay, find us a solution for this.
Right.
Now it's no longer us waiting for them to develop a solution and us fitting it to what we need. Now it's us going to them and saying, hey, this is what we are tied up on. This could be a benefit to you across the entire industry if you can develop this. Develop it for us. We'll be the guinea pig. You bring it into us. Let us, guinea pig it.
Sure.
And then once you got it worked out, take it to market and make yourself some money.
Yeah.
So these guys get invaluable training, even PLC training. And, one of the things that Ron and I have always firmly believed, and something that we promote to people, is, look, we want to train you and treat you well enough, or we want to train you well enough that you can leave, but we want to treat you well enough that you never will.
Yeah.
And that's a saying that we really hold to around here, is that, look, we're going to train you. We're going to get you up to a height where if you really wanted to, you could walk out that door and you'd go find a position, you'd be hired right away.
Right.
But on the other side of it, we're going to give you the benefit package. We're going to hopefully give you the pay that you enjoy. We're going to hopefully give you all the things that when you're sitting here, you don't want to go anywhere.
You don't have to go to college if you don't want to.
We're going to see that more and more, Ron, really with the future in AI and robots, right?
We cannot get electronic maintenance people. And our machines are set up that at 3 a.m. in the morning, we can call Germany and they'll hook into our software and find out where the problem is.
Wow.
Or if they can't find the problem in the software, they know it's a mechanical issue, which we have to deal with. But, we can't find these young kids coming out of high school and going to technical school that are electronic maintenance people that can, we tried to send some of our guys to classes, but they're getting a little bit older and they just said, well, no, we're not. We don't.
It's a gap. It's definitely an identified gap.
And they can start at 75, 80,000 a year.
Right. It's a great income.
Yeah.
So something we have a little fun with our podcast guests on, and maybe you heard this question asked. I think Jeremy maybe previewed a podcast, but we always ask, and we've done this since day one when we had Bob Castellini on. We said, okay, apocalyptic scenario, right? like world is ending. What is in your bug out bag? Okay. It can't be like your family, like they'll be with you, or your dog. We get it. Don't be too trite here. Apocalyptic scenario. You can pick maybe 4 things to put in that bug out bag. What's in the bug out bag? Who wants to start? Is it Ron or is it Jeremy? What do you guys think you would take?
I'll start.
Okay.
Well, there'd have to be some red wine
I like that.
and some scotch.
Yes. Yes, both. Yes.
Probably, I'm hoping I'm going to a beach somewhere, so I want my swimsuit.
Yes.
And I'd like a good-looking woman in there.
There you go. You'll be in Naples maybe when the apocalyptic times hit. I like that.
That's kind of like where my life is.
I like that. What about you, Jeremy?
Well, I would definitely have some bourbon. Yeah,
Yeah.
Angel's Envy in particular.
Ooh.
Man, I would need something. I think I'd probably need a baseball glove and baseball, just because that would keep my time. And I spend so much time doing it now that I think I don't know if I'd be able to get away from not having that. So does that count as 1 or 2?
I can't say the last thing because I'm married, so I hear my wife would kill me if I said that.
From my standpoint, I would think more along the lines of how to waste time, right?
Yeah.
So, just things that would keep my mind busy, which would be mostly sports related stuff, maybe
Yeah.
a football or,
Right.
swim trunks or like a boogie board or something like that.
Right.
I guess if it's apocalyptic, you don't necessarily need the swim trunks.
Yeah,
So, I might as well take the boogie board instead, right? So yeah, mine would be more related to that.
So, I mean, I really could talk to you guys all day, but I want to one of the things I want to hit before we finish up today is, what is something that, like, on the podcast you feel like you want to talk about? We haven't had the chance to talk about it. I kind of see something right here. Ron, you may want to discuss in front of you this award, but really leave us with something maybe we didn't hit that you want to leave our listeners with, our viewers with, that we should touch on.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, as a company,
Mm-hmm.
we've been in the Deloitte 100 for, I think, 15 or 17 years.
The top 300, right? Cincinnati Business Courier. Like, what list are you not on? Okay, I love this.
Yeah, the one, there's 2 I'm proud of. One is the last 5 years I've been in the Cincinnati 300
Mm-hmm.
most powerful CEOs in the city.
Yes.
I mean, wow.
That has to feel good.
And then the Red Hawk 50,
Yes.
which
This is here for our viewers and listeners.
we took the top 50 alumni, or Miami did, ever at Miami University, graduated, national or international business.
Mhm.
It had to be privately held or a CEO, like Jeff Birding was in it. Not that, I think, for running FC Cincinnati.
Right?
So that was one thing that just blew me away, because of all the graduates that left Miami, I'm one of the top 50. So that was something that I really, cherished.
Mhm.
But, I think the other thing is being recognized in our industry as a company. Now everybody knows who we are.
Yeah.
When I first started out, if I went out and got a $5,000 order for somebody, they said, "No, who are you? Where are you located?" Where now everybody knows who we are. And of course the internet has helped. And I want to tell one quick story about that.
Go for it, please.
When I used to go out with my sales manager in the 80s and 90s, we would go into a place and we'd say, "We're here to see this person." And they go, "Okay, he's going to be about 10 minutes and then he'll come out." I'd say, "Great." And so my sales manager would say, "What do you mean great? We had to wait for him." I said, "Because we're going to sit here and go through every magazine that they subscribe to, because all their competitors are in those magazines."
Right.
So we'd pull out the subscriptions and we'd subscribe to those magazines.
So smart.
And we would take the magazine for about 6 months and then we'd terminate it, you know.
Yeah.
But, and the other thing is, every time I'd walk into, let's say I'm walking into my office, one of the things I would do, I'd take a card, and when I'd leave, on the back, I'd put, he likes the Reds, he likes the Bengals. He has a son that's 10 years old that's in baseball, a daughter that's 14 that's in soccer. Mm-hmm. And then I'd call him back, well, how's Jenny doing in soccer? Man, customers just light up. That's the thing today is everything's over the internet with younger generation. They don't get to know their customers. Yeah. They don't they've never been to their location or whatever because all they know is I know this guy over the internet. Mm-hmm. And my son is that way, my younger son. He deals with one of my customers and he gets a little irritated. I said, you don't understand this guy. And so I try to explain to him why they're doing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And, because their buyers don't understand the products. They'll send in questions or orders that they don't have the size of the wire or the color of the wire. Right. So you just have to be patient with them and help them along.
So then, Jeremy, what do you think is something that you wanted to leave us with, leave the listeners with, that we didn't touch on today on the podcast?
Oh, we touched on so much.
We did.
From my standpoint, I think it's just understanding the trajectory, I guess. If anybody can take anything, especially entrepreneurs, can take something out of this, it's, hey, yeah, I'm getting started now, but it may be 10 years until I start to see the success level I want. It may be 15 years till I get to the notoriety that I want or whatever it may be. And maybe that little bit of knowledge about what he went through in the 80s, what we went through as a company in the 90s, how we developed over the 2000s, the 2010s, so on and so forth, and how it's just been incremental steps. It hasn't been, hey, let's absolutely make sure we take this leap. It's been, let's take a step today. Let's take a step tomorrow. Let's find an opportunity to take a bigger step. I think that's something that can maybe be reassuring to maybe some entrepreneurs that are struggling maybe a little bit, that, hey, there can always be a light at the end of the tunnel. If you have the passion for it, you have the desire to do it, and you have the work ethic to do it, that you'll eventually get there. Just keep your nose to the grindstone and work a little bit harder, right?
Right.
Find a way to work a little bit harder. Beyond that, I think understanding that American dream is still very alive and well.
I could not agree with you more.
And it's more about people believing in it.
Yes.
And understanding that it's not the American minute. It's the American dream for a reason, right? It's a dream that needs to be developed, fostered, grown over a number of years. It's not, hey, I'm going to wake up, oh, I got this great idea. Look, the guy who put the little plastic things on the end of the shoelaces, yeah, he had a multi-million-dollar idea and it just popped into his head and there you go.
Right.
But if you look at today's day and age, everything is so developed already. The idea of having a simple idea that just makes you multi-millions because you're Velcro or whatever, right?
Right.
It's just not there anymore. You have to have the patience, the desire. You have to be able to put in the work and the time. And if you're not willing to do those things, then you're not going to get to where you want to go to.
Sure.
And, something I try to instill in my kids, I think that's something that we are lacking in the country today, is that idea of a work ethic. That idea that, hey, I can get up and go get it done myself.
Right.
Rather than always waiting for somebody else to do something for it.
That's right.
So
I tell my children they can earn commissions on chores. It's like, this is, the bathroom is a $5 commission. That's a serious commission because you have to teach them work equals monetization, right? Like hard work. And I'm thankful to my parents. I know you're thankful to Rod for teaching you how to work hard.
Yeah.
Really what I want to say to both of you is just like, thank you for taking the time to sit down with me. Such a pleasure.
Thank you.
It's
been a blast.
It's a fun podcast. We have fun learning from leaders in Cincinnati. And just to both Ron and Jeremy, thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you.
To learn more about how to expand your philanthropy, please reach out to the Northern Cincinnati Foundation.